I'm Corbett Wall with DV Auction, here with your feeder flash for Monday, June the 18th, where if you look at the fat cattle trade last week, we lost that $5 we gained the week before. Your late week sales were mostly $1.10. We never saw significant market setting trade, but had enough trade in the northern plains and Nebraska, especially in Iowa, on a live basis at 110, where, like it or not, that's pretty much your market. Never really did establish, or never at all established, a price in the southern plains of Kansas and Texas. But you know, we lost what we gained the week before, but we think maybe the worst is over on these big numbers of cattle. And as much as they're wanting to harvest these cattle, we may be kind of able to hold the own and hopefully keep it above the double digits here as we work through the hottest part of the summer. Look at the board for last week. August live cattle 104.77, down $1 even for the week. August feeder cattle ended the week at 147.97, actually up 70 cents, with Friday nearly up the limit there at $4.30. But that should help some of our big high volume feeder cattle auctions on Monday. And your market was pretty much steady throughout the week on your cash feeders. And even though nothing really happened to help it, you know, fundamentally, the board being up nearly the limit on Friday should keep us going into a positive light on Monday's big sales. Fat cattle sales through Thursday, 32,600 head last week. That's not counting Friday. We didn't get a good collection of those, but like I said, no set price in the southern plains, hardly any trade at all anywhere in your southern plains feedlots. But Nebraska and Iowa, also Colorado never really sold anything, but Nebraska and Iowa sold some cattle mostly, and those live sales, live steers, had a weighted average through Thursday of 110.81. It'd be under 110 if we just took the late week sales, but they started out earlier in the week as high as 114, just a little off of that 115, and then kind of faded back to $110 by the end of the week. Your dress sales, with a weighted average through Thursday of 177.94 in your 5-area feeding region, and they started out, like I said, early last week in Iowa and some places at 183, and they drifted down to 176 to 178 by the end of the week. But box beef cutout values, the shine's starting to come off of them a little bit as we've passed the Father's Day purchasing, and we're getting past the 4th of July buying. And now we always see it drip down a little bit after they get through making their purchases for the 4th of July grilling holiday there. But your average trade for the week last week on choice cutouts, $223.52, down $3.43 compared to the previous week's average, and selects $202.64, down $1.83. Look at your feeder markets. Real-time index on Beef Market Central ended the week at 140.28, which was actually up 73 cents compared to the same number at the end of the previous week. But your cash feeders and your auctions were just largely steady. We didn't see anything vary too far one way or the other, and for the most part I saw very little change in the value of your feeder cattle sales. Not a good test of your calves in most of your areas up through the plains in the Midwest, but just not a lot of those moving, but very little reason for those to change one way or the other. But most of your stocking cattle are turned out now and have been for quite a while. We saw Corn Belt Classic Superior's big video up there in Council Bluffs, Iowa, in the middle of the week there, and it's the first of the big video sales seasons. And we did see a few of your yearlings priced for late summer. But on Thursday there we saw several of the fall delivery calves up in the northern plains, the mountain states, the Montana calves, a lot of those big one iron cattle. It's always curious to see what they'll start selling at. Most of those were selling in the low to mid 150s to weigh around 7 for October delivery. If they had bells, whistles, qualified for a value-added program, or just had the reputation to do it, they could sneak up in the low 160s. But that's kind of your steer market for fall delivery calves so far. Look at some sales at the end of the week last week. Friday at Torrington Livestock Markets in Wyoming, they sold 87 head of 864-pound steers at $140.50. Fort Scott, Kansas sold 132 head of 754-pound steers at $151.25 on Saturday. And that's your feeder flash for Monday.